About a month ago, we were blessed to have a couple of folks from Ward Lab come down and help us start understanding at a deeper level the nutrients, how soil works, kind of how it transfers nutrients. Man, I'm so happy that today you got Patrick back and Mick will be here in a little bit. And you know, at that stage, Patrick, all the mulch we see on the ground was standing up, right? It was, you know, chest tall on us or so.
It's pretty high.
Yeah, and took some samples there and talked about, guys, there's enough nutrients here based on that we weren't gonna have to add anything to produce a pretty good crop, a healthy crop. So now you're here a month later and we've planted, we've crimped, and we've watched. That's all we've done. So now today, tell us what you'd like to do to further educate, you know, deer hunters and myself about what's going on now.
Yep, well, thanks for having me, Grant.
Yeah.
Yep, so what we're gonna be doing today is gonna be sampling some of the, I guess, the browse quality of the forage to kind of get an idea of what the sort of the mineral content, the protein content, what they're actually eating, and how it's actually gonna benefit their growth.
Yeah, so deer hunters, man, we're all concerned about that. Kind of this time of year, you know, a lot of does are already lactating. They've had fawns already. And of course, bucks are growing antlers. We're seeing a lot of fawns in person or with our moultries. So kind of that baseline minimum we want is them to have available about 16% protein. Of course, a lot of minerals, right? Growing antlers takes a lot of calcium and phosphorus and producing milk, lactating. You know, from the dairy world, it's not that much different. Takes a lot of minerals, right?
Yep.
We planted Green Cover's Summer Release Blend, which has a lot of different species in it. And I can tell deer browsing on the buckwheat, of course the soybeans and some of the things in here. So we're gonna take samples of each individual plant. Now this is not going towards, well, how many tons we have per acre. What we're gonna do is, well, if deer eat on buckwheat, what's that providing them? And you've helped me understand, we don't want to just see a buckwheat and yank the whole thing out of the ground and stick it in a bag, right? What we wanna replicate what the deer are browsing. So deer are extremely finicky eaters, I'd call them, right?
Right.
They're not like I made my kids, well, if you don't like that, make a peanut butter sandwich, you know, that deer don't do that. They're just gonna eat the best and leave the rest. So what we're gonna do is see where they're browsing, find that same species that haven't browsed and just pinch off that part, right?
Right.
You can do the same thing, and what this is a reflection is, it's not just, well, buckwheat's always gonna be this, because if the soil is poor quality, the plant can express its potential, right, Patrick?
That's exactly right. So the plant is a reflection of the soil quality and its overall growth and health.
Yeah. So I put it, in Grant terms, plants are just nutrient transfer agents. If the nutrients aren't in the soil, they can't transfer it to the consumer. In this case, we're thinking deer, right?
That's right.
Yeah, so we want healthy soil. It all starts below our boots, basically. And I just want to know, as a deer manager, am I providing enough nutrition for deer to express their full potential? Bucks will grow antlers, and of course does and make high quality milk for their fawns and stuff like that. So that's our mission today, and Patrick's gonna teach us how to do that. And you guys at home can do the same thing. You can see how we pull samples, and you can check your food plots and the forage in them and send it to Ward Lab and get these, do what I do and tap the experts and learn more about what's going on.
That's right, yeah. So you'll get a really great snapshot of the quality of the forage, and then kind of see how things are going from there. And you can reflect that onto transfer that to the quality of the soil and sort of the health of the system.
Patrick, so, big, intense production ag guys, maybe they have a pivot irrigator or something like that, right? They will actually come out and do what they call fancy tissue samples during the growing season, right?
Right.
And based on that tissue sample, they may say, hey, I need to add XYZ, it'd be a liquid form often, into the irrigation system. Is that correct?
Exactly. Supplementing the nutrients that the plants need, I guess synthetically or manually.
Yeah. So we're not going to do that here. We're growing, and I know from earlier tests, my soil's in really good shape. I'll be surprised if we find something that's really short. And we know from our moultrie images we get from moultrie cameras, that does, even though they're lactating, they look good, they're full, they're not looking gant, and antlers are coming on pretty good. Now, we're gonna move around a little bit, and you can show us how to take a 4-H sample to send it in to Ward Lab to make sure you're providing good quality nutrition that's gonna transfer from the soil and the plant and the air to the deer, and that comes out, or that's expressed in antlers and fawn, quality milk fawn production, because a lot of deer don't express their genetic potential. And there's several great examples throughout America, but I like to use Missouri. I'm from Missouri, and people always talk about, the world record quality deer in northern Missouri. And those big deer, they always say, them deer got the best genetics up there, man. I mean, that big old bucks walking around, and of course they're all dripping soybeans and corn out of their mouth and they're walking around, right? What a lot of people don't know is the main stocking sources for all of Missouri. There were a few deer brought in from the magical Wisconsin, but the main stocking sources, one of them was about 15 miles further in the hills right over here, Drury Mincy. And then there was Peck Ranch and there was Caney Mountain, all deep in the Ozarks. Those deer were making a living off, rocks and acorns and stuff like that. And they were put up north decades ago, and they started eating soybeans and better soil, good groceries, and voila, the same genetics express world-class potential. And that's how we grow good deer here at the proving grounds in the Ozarks. We grow better deer than most of the county. I'm not boasting, just the way it is, because we have really good soil and the plants can transfer it to the critters. Deer do not have any upper incisors, so you can tell deer browse versus out here maybe a rabbit or something like groundhog. We got a lot of groundhog issues here. Because they don't have those upper incisors, or lower incisors kind of just push the plant up to a cartilaginous plate or hard plate on top of their mouth, and they tear it off, and it leaves an uneven cut. Versus the dastardly groundhog, it's like a scalpel. So we're going to be looking for plants that deer browsed on, and then find a neighboring plant and try to, again, remove just that part. And then I want to say that whatever numbers we get are probably a little bit lower than what deer are ingesting, because deer have this awesome ability to know exactly what they need through several mechanisms. And so they're eating the best at that moment and leaving the rest. And that doesn't mean the rest of it's no good, because another week of growth, this plant may be better in some nutrient content or something like that.
Yeah, that's right.
And studies have been shown that, if deer know they're low on protein or they're low on phosphorus or whatever it is, they will select plants that are high in that nutrient need. Yeah. And right now I see them preferring some plants over others, but we'll take samples and see what we're providing them and go from there. So when I look down, I can tell that deer clearly browsed right here. They tore that off, see a little phrase on there. And a new leaf has grown out right here. You can see the new growth right here. This leaf, they bit right here. They didn't bite here, but it's discolored and it feels a little funky. That's how selective deer are. They're gonna take the best and leave the rest. So we could, in fact, they browsed right here, so we could just plop that right there, because it's about the same amount of stem, and that would be the first sample for buckwheat. Is that correct?
That looks good, yeah.
So at that point, how much do we need to send you a sample? How much do we need to collect?
Oh, we need about, I would say, about a quarter-size bag full. We don't need that much, yeah.
So air a little bit more, like, half a bag or less, something like that. Don't send them too little, folks, because then you get a nasty gram from Patrick.
Yeah, more is better because we have to dry it down. So
yeah, and these plants shrink. They're probably 70% moisture right now.
Pretty much, yeah.
So when you see this, if you put it in an oven like Patrick's gonna do and shrink it down, these plants would actually shrink about 70% because they're taking all the moisture out. And there's a lot of conflicting numbers, but for round numbers, let's say deer need to consume about 5% dry weight of their body weight a day. So a 100-pound doe needs to get 5 pounds with no moisture in there. The moisture is gonna pass through. That's, a lot of weight, 10, 15 pounds. And if you sit out here and did this to get 15 pounds, that's a lot, right?
Yeah, but you want to get a nice representative sample with taking that into consideration, though.
Yeah.
Growing Deer is brought to you by Bass Pro Shops and Cabela's. Also by Green Cover Food Plots, Winchester, Lacrosse Footwear, Moultrie Mobile, Fleet Outdoor Apparel, Morel Targets, RTP Outdoors, Fourth Arrow, Hunt Stand, Scorpion Venom Archery, Case IH Tractors, Ward Laboratories, Burris Optics, National Land Realty, G5 Broadheads, Prime Bows, and Redneck Hunting Blinds.
Patrick, we planned on taking samples of more species, but they're really kind of focused on buckwheat now, so I'll be excited to see what's in there. Is that high phosphorus or whatever they're seeking right now? And then over time, as I start seeing them browse on, sun hemp or soybeans or alfalfa or whatever, I'll send you more samples. that way we're current, right? When deer are seeking it, we can see what that plant is producing. Does that work for you?
I think that sounds great, and you can kind of build up a nice little profile of things to expect when you have some of these different mixes.
Yeah, and of course, one of the designs of the green cover mixes is what we talk about time release. Something to eat early, mid, and late season. And those dates aren't exact, right? They're very based on rainfall and soil conditions and what a deer needs, what else is available on the property. But time released is a really important thing when you're making any blend of forages.
A few days ago, Mick and Patrick from Ward Laboratories were here at the Proving Grounds, and we collected several forage samples while they were here. And one of those samples was buckwheat, which deer were obviously targeting. We saw that in the field. So we sent those samples back to Nebraska with Patrick and Mick. They got in the lab, got to working, and we just got our test results. I'm going to hop on a Zoom call and talk to Patrick about the results. Hey, Patrick, you were down here just a couple days ago, and I'm glad you made it back to Nebraska, and you got our samples in the lab. And we just got the results back. I'm really excited.
Yeah, I am too. I was really glad that we were able to come out there. Thank you for having us.
Yeah, and one of the things we talked about when we were in the field was how selective deer are when it comes to browsing and selecting those specific plants that are meeting their nutritional needs at that time. And kind of you saw as we started, we thought we kind of going into the day, we're like, oh, we may try a couple of these plants or, these species, maybe some soybeans, kind of see what deer are browsing on. And as we really dove into it, there was one species that we were really seeing a lot of browse on, and that was buckwheat. Mm-hmm. So that was the species we really went after when we were collecting those samples.
Yeah, no, I was really excited to see the data. I guess because mostly we look at the data here for, ag in terms of like a green manure, like what the cover crop is going to resupply back to the soil. But looking at it in terms of protein, why the deer are actually selecting these was kind of like looking at it through a new set of lens for me. So I was really excited to kind of look at this data whenever we got the analysis done today.
Yeah, I'm super excited. Of course, we have the results. It's been 2-3 days and we have the results back, which is great because I'm really excited to see what's happening out there. And when I look at this, the big number that just jumps off the page at me is crude protein, and that's 25.6%. I mean, that's huge.
Yeah. For the palatable species, from what I've read that deer would select for, this is pretty rich in protein. I can totally see why they're going after it.
Absolutely. And I mean, that, if we're at 16, if we're starting to go over 16% protein, I mean, that's very palatable and great for deer right now, especially as they're putting on antlers and fawning and nursing fawns. I mean, that protein is a huge part of their food source. And it makes sense why we were seeing deer at, 25% protein feeding on buckwheat.
Yeah, it makes a whole lot of sense. And even though that was new growth, they were still going after it pretty good.
Yeah. And the calcium and the phosphorus, those numbers were pretty good too. I think it's important when we look at this to realize what we were testing were leaves and forage that hadn't been browsed. So of course, deer are taking the highest quality forage and they're leaving the rest, right?
That's right.
Because one thing we do is we want to offer deer more forage than they can consume so they can actually select which is the best. Mm-hmm. If we don't have a lot of forage out there, they're going to eat everything they can, but we want them eating the best stuff. So I think that's important to point out. When we look at calcium, we've got, 1.7%. That's pretty high. And this is on the low end because those are leaves that deer are not selecting.
Mm-hmm. I think you and Grant talked about this before when we came out, but it's the deer's antlers, I guess in that sort of establishment phase that they really want to consume more calcium in their diet.
Yeah, 2 parts calcium, 1 part phosphorus, and really hitting the calcium hard right now. And that's exactly kind of what we're seeing. I mean, there's hitting that protein. There's a lot of calcium in here. It makes sense that that's the species that deer are targeting right now. So as we move down through here, I see a lot of trace minerals, and there's pretty good numbers on there. Mm-hmm. And then we get into dry matter and biomass weight. And just tell me what those numbers are.
Yeah, the dry matter is essentially just that, is sort of just the dry percentage pre and post drying. So we get that the value that goes into the calculations. And that's
so there's a lot of water in that forage.
There's quite a bit. It ranges quite a bit.
So when we were talking about, man, deer have to consume a lot of forage because that water is released, it passes through them. Mm-hmm. And so now we're really seeing that dry matter. How much dry matter are they actually consuming to then consume, let's just say 5% of their body weight a day? They've got to consume quite a bit.
Yeah, if you take into consideration the water fraction of that, or the water portion, it kind of blows my mind how much food they have to consume just to kind of meet those requirements. And when you say that they clear out some of these plots, I mean, looking at some of the numbers, I can totally believe it now.
Well, we're glad they're feeding at our place, that's for sure.
Well, it's some of the most fertile soil I've seen, especially with the last soil health assessment that we did for you. It had one of the highest soil health scores. The thing that blows my mind is that it's shallow soil, it's rocky soil, but organic matter is excellent. The productivity of the soil, for being as shallow as it still blows my mind.
So I think that's a great point. It's a shallow soil, but we still have healthy soil because we've been implementing the release process for several years now, and we're kind of full throttle, and we're producing some great deer. We have healthy forage, and I think it's important to remind everyone we haven't added any fertilizer to this, and we still have these great numbers and great deer forage. I mean, you're probably working with a lot of ag guys that are adding a lot of synthetic fertilizer to their crops. I mean, are these numbers too far off from those guys that are adding a lot of fertilizer year after year?
No. I would say you're probably on the top end of that. I mean, the fact that these plants can, without amending the soil with anything, adding any fertilizer, the fact that they're able to acquire all these nutrients to make this high level of protein on a shallow, rocky soil, I mean, that's incredible. I mean, with crude protein numbers comparable to the big guys, to sort of the big ag guys. So that's, a massive achievement.
Yeah, I'm impressed by these results. I'm thrilled that you're a resource that we can now team up with and send these results and test and really see, what deer are eating, what nutrients are they taking in, and why they're eating what they're eating. I think this is just a huge benefit for us to learn and to be able to then apply that to our food plot practices.
And it's a great benefit for us too. It's a new avenue of agriculture that some people don't really address in terms of our industry for soils.
Yeah,
but it is an ideal application for a lot of this like regenerative, healthy soil work because your target is cover crops for food plots. So you want a low input system, a very productive system, and it looks like you have a very, very productive system, and it should go towards your goal of deer growth and health.
Yeah, deer are looking really good at our place right now. I'm getting a lot of Moultrie Mobile videos of them, and they're looking really good. Healthy fawns, healthy does, everything's looking great, and we've got a lot of videos of them head down eating in our food plots. Of course, food plots are just starting to come up, but obviously now we know they're really targeting that buckwheat. So, and while you were here, we actually took some samples of some other things, and I think we're going to share that probably on our social media pages, kind of the results of that. Found some really cool stuff while you guys were here, and I'm really looking forward to sharing that with everyone.
Yeah, should be great. It's a treasure trove of data. I just love looking through this stuff.
Well, you're very skilled and very knowledgeable, Patrick. And I just want to thank you for your work and thank you for joining today and kind of going through these results with us as we look at what deer are feeding on right now here at the Proving Grounds.
Yeah, thanks, Daniel. I'm really glad to share this information with you. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Patrick. We all really enjoyed getting out this past week and getting our hands dirty and collecting forage samples. And it was a great way to be outside and enjoy creation. Whether you're out just taking a hike or maybe you're checking out your food plots, I hope you slow down and listen to what the Creator is saying to you and the purpose He has for your life. Thanks for watching Growing Deer.